Okay, so today I'm going to talk to you about the best lens for wildlife photographers using the Sony a6700. And I'm going to kind of break this down into a few price categories. Starting off, I'm going to give you the best of the best, which is actually going to be a $6,000 lens. And then I'm going to tell you the best value lens, and then we'll talk about a few other lenses to get. So best of the best, if you need the absolute best, I would get the Sony 300mm 2.8. This is a $6,000 lens. I know most of you can't afford that, but I would just say if you can only get one lens, I would get this lens. And the main reason is because you can get it with a teleconverter. You can get a 1.5x teleconverter, you can get a 2x teleconverter, and this is just going to give most people really good low light performance. It's using this lens recently at WPPI. It was incredible. Like, just focus fast. There was like no comparison when I was using this lens compared to the Sony 200 to 600. It's just better in every way. It was so light, way lighter than the 200 and 600. It was actually more like holding the Sony 100 to 400. So I would say if you can afford it, that's the lens that I would get. If you are like most people, I would just get the 70 to 350. I think that's a really good lens. It's sharp, it has good autofocus. It's really has a really small form factor, and it ends up being like a 500mm lens with the crop factor of APS-C. Now, if you have a little bit more money, but you don't have $5,000 to spend, I would say, and you don't mind carrying like a little bit extra weight, and this is going to be comparable to the 300mm lens that I was talking about earlier, I would get the Sony 100 to 400 f5 to 5.6. You're going to get way better low light performance if you're doing anything at sunset or anything like that. I think this is really a good lens to get. But in my opinion, I mean, it's just a huge heavy lens to carry on this small camera body. And if you're going to carry a heavy lens, I really would prefer to have the 70 to 200 or just a 300mm 2.8. I think that would be ideal. I currently shoot on the Sony 50 to 400, which I have other videos that I kind of talk about this lens. And I think for me, it's completely fine because I just carry it in a sling or a backpack and it's just easy to carry around. But I still think the 70 to 350 is probably a better lens to get because it's so much lighter and it fits a lot better with Sony APS-C. I really am annoyed that Sony hasn't come out with any better APS-C lenses for telephoto lenses. They only have like the 70 to 350. They also have like a 210mm lens, but they really need like a 300mm or a 400mm. Sony just doesn't have those lenses, and I think it would be really nice to have a better performing lens for cameras like the a6700. Now, should you consider the Sony 200 to 600? I would say if you need the maximum reach, I think it's a great lens to get. I've been on the fence so many times, like trying to buy this lens, but the problem is it's too heavy, and I don't want to lug around a lens that's that heavy. But if you are like a dedicated wildlife photographer, like you have your specific places that you go to and you just sit at one spot and wait for wildlife to show up, I think this is like the perfect lens. Really, just get the 200 to 600. You're not going to be disappointed with it. It's on par with any other Sony lens. But if you want something lightweight, I would, yeah, try to stick to something a little bit smaller. And that's why I think the 70 to 350 is such a good lens. It's just, you're just going to have issues at sunset, at dawn and dusk when you have those low light conditions. It's not going to be terrible because like these days you get so much better performance off of just Sony camera bodies. Like your ISO is so much better than it used to be, and so you're still going to get really good performance even with an f6.3 lens on the 70 to 350. So something to consider. And then for those that are like on an absolute budget and they can't really afford much of a telephoto lens, I would get something like a reflex lens. These are kind of junk lenses. They're manual focus. They don't have any in-body image stabilization, and that would be like the Tokina. They have like a 900mm lens. Don't expect really sharp, like great sharp photos, but this is a lens to consider if you're just on a budget. All right, so I hope that kind of helped you understand the best lens for wildlife photography. 300mm lens, I think, is the best lens to get, even though it's a full frame lens. But for most people, I would just stick to the 70 to 350 6.3. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. Have a great day. Thanks.